So at this point, you're doing an awful lot of reading. You're reading lots of literature to inform your decision about what you want to focus on in your dissertation or your thesis. And then once you've decided what you're focusing on, you're now engaging in more reading to try and start thinking about writing your literature review. So what I want to do today in this short video is I want to give you 5 tips about how you can make sure that you're engaging in critical reading. So critical reading, first of all, is something that we need to be actively doing when we are reading journal articles. And sometimes in our everyday life, we engage in lots of reading, but it can be like the way we read our phones, for example, where we're skimming through things and we're sort of sliding information and we're looking at headlines rather than really engaging in reading. And when we do academic reading, we need to be sure that we're being engaged and we're being critical. And so I want to give you 5 tips about how to do this. So tip number 1 is to be aware that this is an action-based activity. Sometimes we can have a sense when we read that we're reading and we're like vessels, that all of this information is just flowing down into our brains. But actually when we're reading, we need to be thinking about being active. We're playing a part. We're not simply just a vessel in which passively we're collecting information. We're doing much more than that. So that's number 1, to recognize that you're engaging in an active activity, if you like. Number 2 then is, and this is related to number 1, is that because we're going to be active, we need equipment. So we need to perhaps have a pen for a highlighter if we're going to be working on a printed out version of the article we're reading, or if we're looking at an electronic version, we need to be having our hands ready to type in comments in the sidelines. Either way, we're doing something, and so we need the equipment ready to do that, to take action. The third thing is that you need to ask yourself questions as you read. You aren't just reading and taking in the information, you're asking questions. And I would often ask those questions in the margins. I'd write them in as the comments, or I'd type them in as the comments. And your questions might be around, why is this the case? Or is this the same as the other author I read? Maybe it's something slightly different. Or the big question is, how does this connect to what my topic or my focus is? And so these questions help you to engage more with what you're reading and help you therefore to be more analytical. And of course, you're taking action. So that's a key element in critical analysis. The fourth thing then is to relate what you're reading to what you already know or to what you want to focus on. And so there might be lots of interesting things that you read in the literature, but your question always has to be to yourself is, how does this relate to my topic or my focus? And is this relevant or useful in the way that I'm thinking about how I need to proceed with my area? A good way of doing this then, to keep that sort of idea of how it relates, is to again make sure that at the end of your reading that you have a synopsis, maybe just at the top of the paper, where you're saying, what were the key messages in the paper and how does it relate to your topic? So maybe which section would you be using it for in your literature review? Again, it's action and it's critical engagement with the piece to think about how it's relevant for what you want to use it for. And the final tip then, the 5th tip, is for you to reflect on how you read critically and to think about how you do that best. So you might need to ask yourself, is there a time of day in which I'm much more likely to be alert and be able to engage in this task that's needed? It might be that you need to think about, is there a place that's better for me to do this? So maybe sitting on the bus isn't the best place because maybe my mind is distracted and really I'm thinking about what's for dinner or what's ahead of me in the day rather than actively engaging in the piece. So the place matters, the time matters, the frame of mind you're in matters. And I think the key thing is that you need to be thinking about how you are going to really, really deeply engage with the piece, to think about how it informs your thinking, how it informs your argument going forward. And that is really critical thinking in a nutshell.